Berdly is a divisive character in Deltarune. Those who love him adore the little Bluebird, whether it's for his humorous, nerdy quips, over-the-top antics, or relatability. Those who despise him find him grating, annoying, and some would even go as far as to call him creepy or an incel. The harsher criticisms seem to stem from reading into things that aren't there, personal projection, and a lot of bad faith. So today I'd like to take a step back and analyze Berdly's character based on the game itself and show some appreciation for this gamer dork. When we first meet Berdly in Chapter 1, he comes across as the snooty and pretentious student. He berates Kris for their academic performance, poor punctuality, and gets noticeably upset when Noelle suggests that Kris joins their group project. While Noelle tries reassuring her father that he's not that bad, thus far we've only seen Berdly at his most grating. He's very proud of his academic performance and looks down on Kris, seeing them as the lesser student and making it known at every chance he gets. And for the past few years, that was all we had to go off of. Nerdy, pretentious, with a chip on his shoulder, who is mean to our main characters. Given that this initial impression has had so much time to ruminate, it's easy to see why people came into Chapter 2 with a pre-existing negative perception. So, what does Chapter 2 bring to the table? Once again, we see Berdly's pretentiousness on full display. When Noelle volunteers to read, Berdly cuts her off, leaping onto the table and diving right in to spare her the humiliation. Right away, this shows that Berdly assumes a lot about Noelle without letting her speak for herself, albeit with a desire to protect her. It also shows an eagerness to perform well in school and impress his peers. This will be important later. This pattern continues when we see Berdly within the cyber world. He arrives with a dramatic flourish, embellishing his intelligence and sharing his desire to create a world for the intellectual. He speaks down on those he deems protozoans, but ironically shows a lack of critical thinking by taking everything Queen says at face value, even when Ralsei points out the likelihood of her manipulating him. It's the first of many cracks in his smart kid exterior. But additionally, we see a slightly softer side in how Berdly treats Kris, admitting that he saw potential in them and even inviting them to join his side. Whereas before Berdly treated Kris rather cruelly, we see that he might actually care about them more than he lets on. Even then, any sincerity to it remains masked with the familiar snobbery. He assumes Kris is jealous of them, desperate to get to the same academic heights as himself and Noelle, and constantly puts down their friendship with Susie. He assumes that Kris wants to use Susie's brawn to take him down. It's a very self-serving interpretation of events, showcasing Berdly's desire to feel important. Even then, when he offers again and again throughout the fight for Kris to join his side, it suggests that he sincerely means it. With how strongly he seems to value academic excellence, it's fascinating that he's willing to put that aside and invite Kris to join his cause when they're only the third best student. I think a big part of this is the lack of social pressure here. Removed from his classmates, barring Kris and Susie, and removed from the library guests, he has fewer eyes on him. He can take a bigger risk by inviting Kris to his side. This, too, will be important later. When we next see Berdly, it's after a brief encounter with both Noelle and Queen. While Noelle seeks to avoid Queen's pursuit, Queen actively avoids Berdly to the point where she hides in an alley the moment she hears his voice. This stands in stark contrast to Berdly himself, who actively seeks Queen out, heaping her with praise. This shows once again Berdly's eagerness to impress. He holds Queen in high regard, thus seeks her approval and her company. The sad thing is, this relationship is not reciprocal. Queen hides from Berdly at every chance she gets. When Kris asks about Queen and Noelle, Berdly immediately gets on the defensive, making excuses about them waiting for him to play retro games. Yet if you look at his talk sprite after, it seems that even he knows it's an excuse, and sheds an insecure light on this little Bluebird. It might also explain his eagerness to form a truce with Kris shortly after. He wants to have friends, he wants to feel important. He may act like it's a temporary thing, but it's very likely that he's starting to feel the loneliness setting in amidst the bright and fantastical world. But here, in this scene, we also see that Berdly isn't that bright. Before, he brushed off Queen's manipulation, but here he outright believes her when she says that she's just passing cars. He doesn't question it at all. Of course, it's entirely possible that he believes it because doing so would hurt less than admitting Queen is avoiding him. By going with the idea that it's just nearby city racket, that means Queen isn't tucked away in the alley, lying to him within earshot. And so he trots off, adamant that Queen is just as eager to spend time with him. When that's clearly not the case. Time and time again, she complains to Kris about Berdly, and time again, Berdly tries to wow her, whether it's with his statue dedicated to their friendship or baking her a gamer's delight. Between this and his boasting about saving and defending Noelle, We see more signs that this initial ego masks a deeply insecure teenager with poor social skills. His insecurities expand beyond his craving for friends and importance, but even to his body image, as seen by the way he fantasizes about having nipples. When you give him a gift, he's genuinely surprised, and more importantly, happy, which suggests that small gestures like this mean a lot to him, and aren't commonplace. He even stays with the party for that room, even if it means spending time around Susie, a surprising twist for someone so prone to berating her. There's even further evidence of this, namely in the way he frames his relationship to Noelle. Initially, one might think he's selfish for his claims that Noelle needs protection, and that she's nursing feelings for him. In a way, that is a selfish mindset, but it is one that also likely stems from an innate desire to be important to at least one person. Perhaps a part of him thinks there's an ulterior motive at play. Of course Noelle is nice to him, because she has a crush on him. It's not like people would be nice to him otherwise. His heart is in the right place, even if he goes about it in all the wrong ways. In neutral and pacifist playthroughs, he keeps talking for Noelle instead of letting her speak. In contrast, Berdly shows a genuine concern for her in the Snowgrave route, picking up on Noelle's unusual behavior right away, the way Kris is pushing her forward, and standing up for Noelle without any of his usual gloating. This shows that his attachment to Noelle is more than for the sake of ego, and that Berdly really does want friends and a sense of belonging. His fight brings another example with the Werewires, whom he boasts are his friends. They're easily dispatched, however, and when asked why he doesn't summon more, he gets awkward and anxious, boasting that they'll probably come back to him. And they never do. But if you want one of the most blatant examples of Berdly's insecurities on full display, look no further than the mouse puzzle. When Kris solves the puzzle, he orders them to tell their friends that he solved it instead, brushing it all off as a big fluke. The idea that the third best student could solve a puzzle like this might, in Berdly's eyes, threaten his own status and intelligence, and without that, what even is Berdly? Berdly is at his most vulnerable in Queen's mansion. Gone are all pretenses of Queen working with him. He's been cast aside and imprisoned, just like Kris and Susie. Noelle is in Queen's clutches. From the get-go, he reacts nervously, fearing that Kris and Susie will leave him behind. There's more boasting about Noelle being his damsel in distress, but I genuinely believe this is at least partially a front to mask his true fears of abandonment. He cares about Noelle as well, but at this point he's come to realize that Queen never truly valued him the same way he valued her. What's more, in the puzzle rooms, Berdly doubles down on his boastful bravado, claiming that the solutions to the puzzles are easy and that he has it in the bag without ever taking initiative. When called out on it, he stammers and struggles, and once again shows discomfort when Kris completes the puzzle before him. He makes excuses, trial and error, the caveman method, and begs for Kris to talk about the puzzle he solved earlier. He even offers to do a puzzle alone with Kris. Kris's validation seems to matter a lot, and it does fit with their earlier interactions, along with the fact that they have apparently gamed together in the past. But with Susie's idea working, it's the ultimate insult to his smart kid persona. The facade finally cracks, and Berdly admits to his lack of intelligence. He reveals the truth about his genius status. Namely, he's only seen as the smart kid because Noelle struggled in a spelling bee, and adults put him on a pedestal. I think this greatly recontextualizes Berdly's earlier behaviors. Being a gifted child comes with certain expectations, success in school being chief among them. Prior to the spelling bee, Berdly was a forgettable kid, and even in the present, that still lingers with characters like Rudy and Queen butchering his name. Oftentimes that intelligence leads to gifted kids being outcasts. They might be seen as unapproachable. In Noelle's case, she maintained a sweet, friendly personality and generally gets along with everyone, but she also has a loving family and many friends. Conversely, Berdly only has Noelle. She's helped him every step of the way, allowing him to maintain his status as #1 student. But that pedestal has come to define Berdly. He has to succeed. He has to be the best. He can't lower himself to the level of idiots and slackers. He can't appear too dumb or too weak. Everyone expects greatness from him. Over time, this likely caused Berdly's pretentious mask to form, and despite his desire for friends and validation, pushed people away. He's not a bad kid. In fact, I'd argue he's one of the more relatable characters in Deltarune, despite his ego and occasionally weird comments. He's not malicious, he just has poor social skills. In fact, by dropping the ego, he's finally able to connect with Susie over a shared love of the Dragon Blazer series. Granted, this leads to an incredibly awkward crush on his part, but it also shows that once he stops acting so egotistical, he can form connections he desperately craves. From this point on, he shows genuine compassion for the party, and an eagerness to cooperate in order to save Noelle and stop Queen. He no longer craves the leading role. Kris will distract Queen. Susie will help rescue Noelle. In just a few short moments, it's clear that he's already learning and growing. Though Queen takes control of him soon after, at the end of their battle, he fights for control once again. In the Violet neutral path, he even forcibly removes the cable at the risk of injuring himself, while in Pacifist he openly praises the effort of his friends, even admits to his own bravado, and promises to help Kris later. A promise he keeps as he rallies the recruited darkness of Cyberworld to reconstruct the Thrash Machine, allowing the gang to take on Giga Queen in one final climactic battle. Even after everything is said and done, he's still willing to give Kris and Susie a chance in the light world, bring his experiences in the dream with him into the future. Unless you were mean and froze him to death anyway. Unfortunately, despite all the effort Toby put into Berdly's character and his arc, a lot of people have a very shallow read on this bird. They see his nerdy gamer guy persona and start projecting a lot of negative stereotypes onto him, as I alluded to earlier in the video. People have gone out of their way to claim things like, Berdly is an incel who uses women. Berdly would be homophobic or transphobic. Berdly is so annoying he deserves to die. It's one thing to dislike a character, and I can see plenty of reasons why people wouldn't care for him, particularly with his crushing on Susie, but a lot of these complaints are either unfounded or hyperbolic. Case in point, Berdly has no qualms with girl gamers. That already sets him apart from your stereotypical toxic gamer guy. He also respects Kris's pronouns a lot better than a majority of the fandom. And I know by saying that a lot of people are probably going to be mad, but hey, he also assumes Kris has a crush on him at one point and gently lets them down. He doesn't protest, regardless of Kris's gender identity. Really, I'd say his greatest crimes, if you can call them that, are being socially awkward, a bit high and mighty, and acting as though Susie is going to fall into his arms like a visual novel character. And even then, his advances are played for laughs, and while he puckers up, he never forces the kiss on her beyond trying to hint that he wants it. And he's a weird, awkward teenager. Sometimes teens behave in ways that are stupid and careless. That hardly makes him the devil. But ultimately, I hope this analysis has helped you understand Berdly on a greater level. If you have any thoughts on the Bluebird, feel free to leave a comment below. A like would also be a big help in the ever-menacing YouTube algorithm. I do have plans to tackle other characters from Deltarune, Undertale, and other media in the future, as well as uploading more music and content from my Undertale webcomic, Inverted Fate. A huge thank you for Rainy D to providing a lot of the footage throughout the video, and to my amazing Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support what I do and get cool perks, feel free to check out the link on screen or in the description. And help a lot, as I'm trying to transition out of dead-end jobs and make content creation more of a full-time thing. At any rate, see you next time!